Harihi Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so we're on part 3 of chapter 1, where we will talk about the first 3 out of 7 items in Sambandha, which is Krishna, Krishna's energies, and rasa. The eternal blissful form of Krishna is the Supreme Lord. He is without beginning, and he is the origin of all else. In the scriptures, he is called Govinda, the cause of all causes. Who knows the Sanskrit for the cause of all causes? Sarvakarana Karanam. Yes. Oh, Sanat, what verse is that from? What verse is it from?
From Shivaji.
No. No? Tulsi?
Sorry, I'm ignorant.
And then also, let's see. Oh, but then, yeah. Anyway, yes. Brahma Samhita. Then here's a quote. Caitanya Siksamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 20, verses 152 through 154. O Sanatana, please hear about the eternal form of Lord Krishna. He is the absolute truth, devoid of duality, but present in Vrindavan as the son of Nanda Maharaj. Krishna is the original source of everything and the sum total of everything. He appears as the supreme youth, and his whole body is composed of spiritual bliss. He is the shelter of everything and master of everyone. The original Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna. His original name is Govinda. He is full of all opulences, and his eternal abode is known as Goloka Vrindavan. Footnote 32. This is Brahma Samhita, 43rd verse. Lowest of all is located Devidam. Next above it is Maheshadam. Above Maheshadam is placed Haridham. And above them all is located Krishna's own realm, named Goloka. I adore the primal Lord Govinda, who has allotted their respective authorities to rulers of those graded realms. Continuing, it is possible for the jivas to realize the form of God, for God himself has given human beings the ability to realize him. By this ability, the elevated jivas can realize the form of the Lord. Humanity has 3 means of realization: gross material organs of knowledge, the subtle body or the mind's comprehension power, and the ability of the soul to perceive spiritual matter. The eye, ear, nose, tongue, and skin are the 5 organs of knowledge. By these senses, a person can gain only material knowledge. By contemplation, remembrance, or meditation on objects of material knowledge using the mind, only more material knowledge, or at most a perverted glimpse of spirit, is possible. Thus, 2 ways of gathering knowledge are material. It is not possible to have realization of the form of the Lord, which is purely spiritual, by these bodily faculties. Which faculties do we need to use to gather knowledge about spirit, spiritual knowledge? If we can't use the senses or the mind.
Shastra.
Okay, and how do we perceive Shastra? That's where the knowledge comes from. Hare Krishna. We have to remember that spirit soul is also a form. Satchidananda. So, Sat, eternity, Chit, all cognizant, and Ananda. So we just have to uncover it. Unless a person takes shelter of the faculties of the soul, spiritual vision of the Lord is impossible. Footnote 33. Srimad Bhagavatam 11:14-26. When a diseased eye is treated with medicinal ointment, it gradually recovers its power to see. Similarly, as a conscious living entity cleanses himself of material contamination by hearing and chanting the pious narrations of my glories, he gains the ability to see me, the absolute truth, in my subtle spiritual form. So generally in the material world, when we try to acquire knowledge, we're trying to gain access to something that we don't have, we haven't had before. In spiritual realization, we're just trying to uncover the knowledge that is, what's the word? Inherent within us, that's already there. So by misusing our free will, we covered that knowledge. And by engaging in bhakti, we remove that covering so that knowledge comes automatically. So it's a very different thing than trying to acquire material knowledge. People who try to see the form of the Lord by taking shelter of the material senses practice asana, pranayam, dhyana, dharana of the yoga system, and by the process of negation, understand the Lord as the soul of the universe. The final goal is a vision of the Paramatma. But by such activity, the perfect spiritual realization cannot be obtained. All that is achieved is fragmentary realization based on negation of material knowledge. Those with extreme negativity consider material form as abominable and imagine a formless, unchanging existence of God. They attempt to realize Brahman, but actually their vision of Brahman is only a show. Footnote 34, Srimad Bhagavatam 11th Canto, 16th chapter, verses 42-44. Therefore, control your speaking, subdue the mind, conquer the life air, regulate the senses, and through purified intelligence bring your rational faculties under control. In this way, you will never again fall onto the path of material existence. A transcendentalist who does not completely control his words and mind by superior intelligence will find that his spiritual vows, austerities, and charity flow away just as water flows out of an unbaked clay pot. Being surrendered to me, one should control the speech, mind, and life air, and then through loving devotional intelligence, one will completely fulfill the mission of life. So whatever we're trying to attain through the material senses, we're not going to be able to hold on to. That's the point of the unbaked clay pot. If you just make a pot out of clay, but you don't actually fire it, the water will just go right through. And so any knowledge that we try to acquire, it just flows right through, because it's not actual knowledge. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu said to Sanatan Goswami, there are three kinds of spiritual processes for understanding the absolute truth. the processes of speculative knowledge, mystic yoga, and bhakti yoga. According to these three processes, the Absolute is manifested as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Madhya Lila 2157. When one accepts Vedic literature by interpretation, or even by dictionary meaning, directly or indirectly, the ultimate declaration of Vedic knowledge points to Lord Krishna. Madhya Lila 2146. So when jivas desire to see the Lord, according to their qualification, they see the appropriate form of the Lord. So there's a point, Hare Krishna. There's a point there that's worth mentioning. What form of the Lord, aside from the Archa Vigraha, do we currently have access to see? The holy name?
Universal power.
Acha, the universal form. So when the jivas desire to see the Lord, according to their qualification, they see the appropriate form of the Lord. So in the spiritual world, we see a very personal form of the Supreme Lord and we interact with Him. Here in the material world, since we turned our back on Krishna, we wanted to see what it was like to be the controller and the enjoyer. Krishna has expanded as the universal form. And that's what we're interacting with. When we want to see God, we can start seeing Him in this form. When we start understanding that everything comes from Him, and we start using this world actually for His service instead of for the service of our senses, then we become qualified to actually see a more personal form. Of course, Krishna is there in the deity, and He's there in His name. But we don't see Him, just as I couldn't see your face before I just put these glasses on, right? He's there, but we can't see Him. So, depending on our qualification, we will see an appropriate form of the Lord. And unfortunately it's simultaneously unfortunate and fortunate. It's unfortunate because of the forms of the Supreme Lord. The Virat Rupa is not necessarily the sweetest form, in one sense. In another sense, it is absolutely a very sweet form. Even without my glasses, I could see the doubt on your face. Now it's even more clear. You doubt that. Why? Anyone know why? Why is the universal form, the Virat Rupa, a sweet form?
Because you know that Arjuna was so afraid.
Arjuna was afraid, he was terrified. Yeah, that's right. So what I just said just doesn't make any sense. What am I talking about? Did I just make that up? Do you have an idea? You have an idea?
No.
No. Okay. So we're all part and parcel of Krishna, right? Means we don't quite understand what that means. We're part of Him means that without Him we don't exist, right? When we misused our free will, we were asking to be separate from Him. Nothing is separate from Him. So essentially what we're asking Him is to make us not exist anymore. But He didn't do that. He actually expanded His form to give us facilities to forget Him while observing every single activity we do that's deviating from what we're actually supposed to be doing. Can you tell me that that's not love? That's very, very sweet. If I tried that on any of my friends or family, I'm like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't want to be around you. I don't even want to know you exist. None of them would go out of their way to make me feel comfortable trying to forget them and observe the entire process, right? So from our point of view, it's not that sweet. It's a bunch of suffering. It can be very scary because when we see Him as the time factor, we just see everything we know being melted away in the blink of an eye. It's terrifying. But from his end, how sweet is that even though all these living entities wanted to completely just forget him, he could have, there's innumerable living entities, there's infinity, right? Letting a few of them just, blink out of existence wouldn't be a big thing. But he has unconditional love for us. So he expands the whole form, builds this whole area for these rebels and allows them to gradually understand the reality, come back to their cognizance, to that sat, chit, sorry. That's why the universal form is very sweet. Now that's not to say, sometimes when I say this, some people are thinking, are you a Brahmavadi, man? Are you just like worshiping the universal form? And no, that's not what I'm doing. But what we need to do is whatever we currently have access to, whatever we're currently investing our time, energy, resources, to those who have money, investing their money in, we have to see Krishna in that. And that currently is the Virat Rupa. That's what we're interacting with, right? And many people have more faith in the way the material world works than they do in the spiritual process. They won't admit to that, but we see in our daily activities what we spend most of our time, energy, and resources on are bodily comfort, maintenance, things like that. And these things can be done in the pursuit of spirituality, but a lot of times they're not. And the way to actually engage our senses in Krishna's service is to see that everything we're doing is actually related to him and do it properly, do it accordingly, according to our relationship, right? So sambandha means to understand that relationship. Abhideya means to act accordingly, and then we actually get to the goal. If we don't do that, then we're just hoping, we're engaging in material activities and we're just hoping one day that it's all going to become clear to us. And that's not a sustainable model. So when the jivas desire to see the Lord according to their qualification, they see the appropriate form of the Lord. Accordingly, as one practices karma yoga, jnana yoga, or bhakti yoga, one will see Paramatma, Brahman, or Bhagavan. The wise call the non-dual spiritual entity tattva, or absolute truth. Footnote 35, this is the actual verse that was just paraphrased, of 1-11 from Srimad Bhagavatam. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. But this absolute entity is perceived differently by differently qualified instruments. Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are actually one entity, but the jivas think the object they perceive to be the supreme. So whichever one I'm perceiving, I think it's the best, right? Because I'm the best, so whatever I would perceive is clearly going to be the best. Bhagavan is Sri Krishna. Those who disregard Krishna, thinking him to be an ordinary mortal, performing material activities, have very meager understanding of spiritual truth. Mahaprabhu taught Sanatana Goswami about Krishna as Bhagavan, quoting from the Bhagavatam, footnote 36, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.3.28. All the above mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. But Lord Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them appear on planets whenever there is a disturbance created by the atheists. The Lord incarnates to protect the theists. Who knows the Sanskrit for the first half of that verse? Yeah? Oh, don't help her. You got it. Ete? Ete? Shamsa? Kala? Then? Jai. Yes. Very good. Do you know the rest? Indrari Vyakulam Lokam. What's the last part? Mridayanti Yuge Yuge.
They say that this is the
Mahavakya?
Yeah, like the most important verse in Bhagavatam.
Mm.
And if there are verses which are apparently in contradiction to this one, you have to explain them in such a way that they don't contradict. So everything should be adjusted according to these words.
I see. Jai. Continuing. Only by devotional activity can one understand the transcendental form of the Lord, which is perfect in all respects. Although his form is one, he can expand his form into unlimited numbers by his supreme will. The Supreme Personality of Godhead exists in three principal forms: Svayam Rupa, Tadekatma Rupa, and Avesha Rupa. The original form of the Lord is exhibited in two forms, Svayam Rupa and Svayam Prakash. In his original form as Svayam Rupa, Krishna is observed as a cowherd boy in Vrindavan. In his original form, Krishna manifests himself in two features, Prabhav and Vaibhav. Madhya Lila 20, 164 through 167. Then, verses 245 through 246 of this same chapter. There are 6 types of incarnations of Krishna. One is the incarnations of Vishnu, and another is the incarnations meant for the performance of pastimes. There are incarnations that control the material qualities, incarnations of the Manus, incarnations in different millenniums, and incarnations of empowered living entities. So let's see. Incarnations of Vishnu, that would be Purusha avatars. Incarnations meant for performing pastimes, Leela avatars. Incarnations that control the material qualities are Guna avatars, Manvantara avatars, Yuga avatars, and Shaktivesh avatars. Then, same chapter, verse 317.
It's very interesting how in different books they are, what is the word? Yes, crossing constantly. Like this is what we're just learning in Lagobhagavata.
Oh.
Later now it appears here.
Yes, somehow this course always does that, where whatever we're talking about in the morning relates to whatever we're talking about in the afternoon. It's almost as if this stuff is really important and we have to understand it from any point of view necessary. Something like that. So verse 317. The conclusion is that Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are simply devotee incarnations who carry out orders. However, Lord Vishnu, the maintainer, is the personal feature of Lord Krishna. Footnote 37. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, verse 31. By his will, I, Brahma, create, Lord Shiva destroys, and he, Vishnu himself, is the eternal form, as the personality of Godhead, maintains everything. He is the powerful controller of these three energies. Continuing. The 6 opulences, or bhaga, are complete wealth. So we're not just talking wealth here, we're talking complete wealth. So owns everything. Complete courage means whatever courage you have is just part of his courage. He says, I'm the strength of the strong, wisdom of the wise, etc. Complete fame, again, complete beauty, complete knowledge, and complete renunciation. That person who has all these qualities, incomplete, is called Bhagavan. Krishna is Svayam Bhagavan because he reveals most completely all the qualities as his very nature. There is no entity equal to or greater than Krishna. He resides eternally in his original form in Gokula. His direct expansions, or Tad Ekatma Rupa, perform their activities by his will. Mahavishnu is Krishna's first Purusha avatar. He lies on the Karna ocean. His partial expansions are Garbhodakashayi and Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. The avatars such as Rama and Nrsimha are expansions from them. That should be a capital T. But Krishna is Svayam Bhagavan, the source of the Purusha avatars. Although Krishna is supreme by his inconceivable power, he simultaneously appears in the material world as the son of Nanda. The Brahman that is mentioned in the Upanishads is but his effulgence. Footnote 38. Brahma Samhita, verse 40. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose effulgence is the source of the non-differentiated Brahman mentioned in the Upanishads, being differentiated from the infinity of glories of the mundane universe, and which appears as the indivisible, infinite, and limitless truth. So that's Brahman. The Paramatma, who is mentioned in the Upanishads and the Yoga scriptures, is one part of Krishna. Footnote 39, Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-55. You should know Krishna to be the original soul of all living entities. For the benefit of the whole universe, he has, out of his causeless mercy, appeared as an ordinary human being. He has done this by the strength of his internal potency. There are many proofs for these two statements in the scriptures. This cannot be understood by reasoning or logical rules. Why can't it be understood by reasoning or logical rules? Yes, Victor. Oh, it looked like you...
Well,
I don't have my glasses on, so you looked eager to answer.
Because Krishna manifests his absolute aspects just by a devotee who has love and
Oh, yeah.
serve him, I guess.
You guess right. Yeah. Krishna reveals himself to those who are actually... How is it worded there? When the jivas desire to see the Lord, according to their qualification, they see the appropriate form of the Lord. So he can only be revealed by someone who's actually qualified to see. So if we're just using our material senses, which can only perceive material things, we're not going to be able to perceive the eternal. We can... What's the word when people speculate? But ponder, we can... There's another word. I lost it.
Meditate.
There's another word too. It's like entertaining the idea, but anyway, there's a word that's perfect for it, but all the other ones work. We can entertain the idea that eternity exists. We can theorize about it. But until we're actually in touch with Shastra, which is not different from Krishna, then we're not going to get anywhere, because there are countless philosophies. I have to have this memorized. There are countless philosophies, but although attempting to reach the truth, they are incomplete and mutually conflicting, being generated from illusory premises. So the material senses, both the gross 5 and the subtle 3, are unable to understand Krishna. As light emanates from the sun, from Krishna, endowed with all wonderful qualities, unlimited rays spread out in all directions. Characterized by negative attributes such as formlessness, those rays take the form of impersonal Brahman in the hearts of those cultivating negation of material consciousness. Yogis seek out Paramatma, the expansion of Krishna, who creates and enters into the universe. So that first part should have sounded familiar to us. Characterized by negative attributes such as formlessness, those rays, so the rays of Krishna, take form of the impersonal Brahman in the hearts of those cultivating negation of material consciousness. And those who are just trying to completely forget him, then Virat Rupa. The object of worship for the less intelligent men is but a transformation of material sattva gun, which has qualities such as formlessness. Out of fear of contamination by worship of human forms or material qualities, the less intelligent people resort to the formless and unchanging concept. But this deprives them of Krishna prema. The pure dharma of the jiva becomes polluted by material conception. Those who become attracted to Krishna's glories and beauty are saved from the negative impersonal mentality and see the kingdom of God. The jiva can, by good fortune, attain this unlimited happiness, but those whose intelligence is overcome by material knowledge cannot reach this spiritual kingdom. This point is driven over and over again, so it's an important one. Although Krishna is eternally the Lord of Goloka, by his inconceivable power, he descends to the material world by his own will, along with his residents, Vraja, and yet carries out his activities in a pure, variegated way. Jivas can understand these transcendental activities of the Lord by pure vision of their soul and not by material eyes. Again, repeated. Footnote 40, this is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Text 13. O Vyasadeva, your vision is completely perfect. Your good fame is spotless. You are firm in vow and situated in truthfulness, and thus you can think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance for the liberation of the people in general from all material bondage. Though Krishna may become visible to the material eye by his power, usually he remains invisible. Right? If somehow we actually get to see Krishna, it won't be by our power. It'll be by his power, with our material eyes, of course. Though Krishna may become visible to the material eye by his power, sorry, I already did that. As the pastimes of Krishna are eternal, not polluted by material time and place, they are visible only to the devotional eye of the pure spirit soul and held in the mind, saturated with love. Footnote 41, Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 7th Chapter, Verse 4. Thus he fixed his mind, perfectly engaged it by linking it in devotional service, without any tinge of materialism, and thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead, along with his external energy, which was under full control. That should be a capital H. As long as people try to approach Krishna with pride of material knowledge, Krishna will remain far from their reach. But when such people call out to Krishna with a humble heart, they will see Krishna and experience the Lord's unlimited bliss. With the appearance of genuine faith, they lose their material pride and offensive nature. So that's how we know if our faith is genuine or not. If we still have material pride and an offensive nature, then our faith is not genuine. We may have genuine faith in the material process, but we don't have genuine faith in Krishna. So this is another test to see if our faith is increasing. If our material pride is decreasing and we're becoming less offensive by nature, then there's an indication that our faith is becoming genuine. There is no room for caste, birthright, material knowledge, beauty, power, influence of material science, position, wealth, or kingdom in cultivating Krishna consciousness. For this reason, understanding of Krishna remains far away from those who are proud of their material status. It is easy to understand then why Krishna is disregarded in the material world. Oh, modern world, thank you. So it's funny because Krishna has all of these opulences in full. We read that over here, the opposite page, the 6 opulences, and he's full in them. When we have some of those qualities to a really small extent, we become very proud of it. And we try to get more of it. And as long as we're proud of it and trying to get more of it, there's no way we're actually going to understand Krishna. Because he has all of it in full. And so when we understand that and appreciate that, not appreciate having a glimpse of one of the opulences, but we appreciate the person who all of the opulences are coming from and serve him with love, then we can understand him. And so the reason why Krishna, God, is disregarded in the modern world is because we're all very attached and proud of our material status, whatever it may be, even if it's very small. There's this saying, a big fish in a small pond. It refers to people who, they sort of live in a relatively small circle, community. And they've accomplished something that everyone in that area thought was great. And so they're actually afraid to go anywhere else, because then if they go somewhere else, then they're going to be subjected to a whole bunch of other good, like really good people. Like high school sports, for example. Someone can be the best high school athlete. As soon as they go to college, they're going to college with all of the best high school athletes. So they're just the same as everyone else. They stuck out where they were. And so this is why people are trying to disregard Krishna, because if you regard him, then you have nothing. Yes?
I've seen that many times. Maybe like we can sing, even in, let's say you like some artists.
You like some artist.
Musician or like a
Yeah.
painter or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he's written, how's it called? Niche?
Yeah, niche.
Yeah. And when nobody knows him, we're like, wow, this guy is really cool and I really love him.
Yeah, yeah.
Fascinating him. But all of a sudden he becomes famous and you're like, I don't like him anymore. But everybody's like cool with him and everybody knows him.
Sure.
So that's really interesting. Even like we can see in some religions, even maybe in Krishna consciousness, because it's something that is not so, not commercial, not mainstream. And maybe you can come in this process and you're like, wow, I found something that is really, I can be somebody here. So it's interesting, like how the ego can like flow everywhere.
Yes, it is. It is everywhere. The unfortunate position of science is that it tries to know truths that are beyond its scope. Though it has no qualification for spiritual matters, science tries recklessly to understand and ends up with worthless conclusions and a depraved mentality. Krishna gives his mercy when a jiva shows humility born of association with devotees. This is the jiva's qualification for spiritual matters. It is impossible to gain spiritual knowledge by material intellect. This statement has been paraphrased like at least today. So this is a very important point. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying it in so many different ways, just in case we didn't catch it the first time. So footnote 43. My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. 10:14:29. Now this is people actually studying the Vedas. What we're talking about here and what we're encountering in the material world is these so-called scientists that they claim that they only can believe something that they can perceive. They don't want to believe anything beyond their perception. And so, as Srila Prabhupada pointed out, especially in his book, Life Comes from Life, is that these scientists, obviously we can understand that there's a life force. But since we can't quantify it, the scientists just say that life comes from matter. It's just some sort of byproduct. Because the only thing they can perceive is matter, therefore, or the only thing, not perceive, because you can intellectually perceive the life force, but the only thing that they can quantify and manipulate and observe in that way, in the gross way, is matter. So they're just trying to say, oh, well, it's just a more subtle form of matter. It's worth noting that some of the greatest scientists were actually studying the Upanishads to find out what that was, because they understood that something is there. Chemically, none of the questions are being answered, but something is there. So Nikola Tesla, Einstein, they all appreciated Vedic knowledge because it's talking about it. And so they wanted to understand it in more of a scientific way. Nikola Tesla, he probably wanted to harness it, that energy. I don't know. I never met him, but from what I read about him and his studies. But he was definitely trying to understand it. And so although we can understand it, again, we call them so-called scientists because they're only dealing with what they can perceive. And that's a lie too, because they put forth a lot of theories and they support them with a lot of faulty logic, and they expect us to actually believe them, even though they say, no, but if you can't perceive it, you shouldn't. So, yeah, it's not even right to call them scientists, because science actually it's a process that actually can get you somewhere. Yes?
Can we say that they, since they feel like deep inside, maybe these scientists, they kind of know that they have to be devoted to this thing, like they have to surrender to some aspects that they don't want to surrender to. Can we say that this is the reason why they don't want to go further inside it? Because sometimes they use it, like even Himmler, he was using Bhagavad Gita to say some things like he's my Krishna, but he didn't know that. So they know that this is powerful knowledge, but they kind of miss the aspect of being devoted to it. So it's easier for them because they cannot control something.
Yes, yeah.
Instead of...
Yeah, that's possible. There are also scientists who are secretly theists, but they're not allowed to talk about it. There are a lot of those in the science departments. You talk to them and they're like, yeah, you know, but we're not really allowed to talk about that because it's basically banned subject. What do they call it? Taboo. Yeah, forbidden. Right. You're just not allowed to talk about it. So these days it's quite popular where anytime anyone's talking about faith, people are trying to show the superiority of science because you can perceive it, because it makes sense. And for most people in the material world, that is their preferred religion, unfortunately. But as long as we're using the material senses and the subtle material mind, we cannot understand Krishna, according to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur 6 times in the last couple pages, in many different ways. Okay, now we're going to start talking. So that was Krishna. Now we're going to start talking about Krishna's energies. Any questions about Krishna?
I just want I have a slight question.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry I'm taking it a little bit back, but there's this Caitanya Siksamrita 23:17, where the conclusion is that Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are simply devotee incarnations who carry out orders. And in Laghu Bhagavatamrita we read that sometimes Brahma is Krishna himself.
Yeah.
Is it meaning that devotee means like, because Brahma is in a position of a devotee, not that it's a jiva?
Yeah.
Okay, that's one.
Yeah, so Brahma's position it's a service. So he had to be qualified for it. And so when there's no jiva qualified, Krishna himself comes to do it. He also sometimes is Indra, etc. Just as a funny side note, during the pastime of Hiranyakashipu, do you know this already? You know this already. Oh no, you don't know what I'm going to say, you just know that Hiranyakashipu.
Yeah.
So, during the time when Hiranyakashipu was conquering all of the heavenly planets, including Indra, Yajna, Vishnu, was taking the position of Indra. So he allowed himself to be defeated by Hiranyakashipu for the pastime. So technically, Hiranyakashipu did beat Vishnu because he led him. But then he wanted to do this pastime with Prahlad Maharaj. It was an interesting tidbit. You can find it in Srimad Bhagavatam because it lists all the different manvantars, the manus, who's in charge and who's there, who's in which position, and Yajna took the position of Indra in that particular cycle. Yeah, it's funny. So what it means there is that position is it's a service.
Yeah.
So devotees do that, and sometimes it's Krishna himself when there's no one qualified. And it's worth noting because a lot of times the demigods in our movement sort of get disrespected.
Yeah.
Unintentionally. We're definitely not supposed to disrespect the demigods because they're devotees. We're not supposed to worship them as God, but we are to respect them as devotees. So that's a very important thing that we have to learn to do. It becomes difficult because in the stories of Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear about their many mistakes.
Yeah.
But they actually rarely make mistakes. We just read about them to know that no matter how elevated we become, we can still make mistakes, and we have to be able to learn from them. Right? I went off on a big tangent. All you asked for was, yeah. So yes, you're right. So sometimes he comes as those. Yeah. Any other questions on the Krishna section? Okay, so now Krishna's energies, Shakti. Krishna's energies are unlimited. The meager knowledge of the jiva cannot even understand what energies exist in the various parts of the unlimited universe. Oh, I got to tell this thing. So when I was in physics in high school, my teacher, who was a huge moron, but he told us this. It's not. I don't know. He told us this story. We'll call it that. And it's about microbiologists and astronomers, right? So microbiologists are looking in deeper and deeper and deeper, and they want to know more and more about less and less. So their focus goes inward. So they're looking at the smallest thing, so they want to get more and more knowledge. So they're learning more and more about less and less. And the astronomers, they're zooming out. They want to see the whole thing. And what they find is the further they look, the less they know, because as you get further out, the rules sort of change. Everything that you think you know here is different out there. And so they gradually learn less and less about more and more. So eventually, the microbiologists know everything about nothing, and the astronomers know nothing about everything. So that's kind of how science is. When I was in biology in middle school, we were diagramming the cell. You know, they have the little things and then, you know, all these parts. And I'm looking at the blank parts and I'm like, what's there? There's got to be something there, right? And they're like, no, that's just, you know,
Something.
it's just like goo, plasma, you know. I'm like, I don't know, man. If you're like zooming in on this and there's like all these things, wouldn't you think like if you zoomed in on this area, there's also some stuff that's important? But yeah, no, they don't do that. So whatever they can actually perceive, they'll label and they'll write volumes of books on and all of that. But no, if you try to tell them, isn't there a possibility that since you couldn't see that before, you know, before you had this equipment, that there might be other equipment that can make you see more, or equipment that you don't even have access to? No. Our knowledge is complete now. It used to not be complete, but now it's complete, and there will never be a time when it's not complete. This is their mood. So my guru, when he was in grad school, and he saw these trends of the scientists claiming something, proving it, right? Based on what we've observed, we can prove this beyond a doubt. This is how the world works, right? And then they learn something else, and they say, we used to think this, but now we know that it's like this. And they did that so many times that my guru said, you would think that they'd use their intelligence and they'd stop saying, we used to think, and now we know, and they would say, we used to know, but now we think, you know? That's more honest, because we used to be so sure about this thing, but now actually we think it's more like this. See, that would be more honest, but this whole, yeah, we used to think it was like that, but now we know beyond a shadow of a doubt, it's just like this. So you would think, after time and time and time again of eating crow, is that a phrase?
Crow?
Eating crow, it's a stupid American phrase where it just means that you've been proven wrong over and over again. So you'd think after so many times of doing that, you wouldn't be so...
Sure.
Yeah, you wouldn't be so adamant about being right. You'd just be like, well, I've been wrong like every time in the past, so why would I be right now? But it's, So anyway, this is the so-called science that we're dealing with. So the meager knowledge of the jiva cannot understand what exists in the various parts of the unlimited universe. In the spiritual world, across the Viraja, exists Vaikuntha, and above that, Goloka Vraj. In Vaikuntha, four-armed Narayana displays all majesty. In Goloka, with the predominance of sweetness, all majesty is hidden. Krishna is the possessor of all energies. Footnote 44, Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-21. O Supreme Great One, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, O Super Soul, Master of all mystic power, your pastimes are taking place continuously in these three worlds, but who can estimate how and when you are employing your spiritual energy and performing these innumerable pastimes? No one can understand the mystery of how your spiritual energy acts. We don't have the capacity to understand. Since we were just talking about Brahma before, and how sometimes he's a jiva, so the Brahma in our universe, he has four heads. We know from the 10th canto, 14th or 15th chapter, that there are innumerable universes. Each of them has a Brahma, and most of them have, actually all of them have more than four heads because their universes are bigger. The bigger they are, the more processing speed you need to actually understand it all. So Brahma, four heads, ours. When he woke up from seeming non-existence, there he is in this big lotus flower, and he's like trying to figure it out. He's trying to use his material senses and intellect. He actually climbs down the lotus stem. He's like looking around, like, what's this? What's this do? Okay, there's water, And then he went back up to the lotus. What did he do up there? After he tried to figure it out, he meditated. And what did he hear?
He heard in his heart knowledge.
No, he heard the word tapa.
Tapa, yeah. So then he understood. Yes, he has to do this meditation. Then Krishna revealed it to him. Everything that was needed to expand the universe was right there in that lotus stem that he was trying to, climb down it. What is it? So everything was there. It just had to be revealed to him how to expand it. So then all of the whole universe is expanded. So that's Brahma with his four heads. We, with our one head, think that we can figure it out, even though Brahma with his four heads couldn't figure it out without it being revealed to him by Krishna, right? And our head's way smaller. Our brain, we only use, what do they say? I mean, this is what a scientist came up with, so they say about 10%, but who knows if that's true? You can't really trust these guys. But it sounds about right, yes.
What kind of meditation was that?
What kind of meditation? What kind of meditation did Brahma perform?
Silent meditation.
Silent meditation?
He was just sitting in silence, meditating on what? What was the object of meditation?
I don't know, I'd have to read that part again. But, so because of Brahma's qualification, I'll read it before I say anything, because I can imagine what happened, but I'd rather recheck into it. I mean, we can say with certainty that he understood that the Lord can't be perceived by the senses or the mind. And so he must have had a prayerful mood, the mood that we're also supposed to have when we're chanting japa, to asking the Lord to reveal his plan. Otherwise it wouldn't have been revealed. So we can say that with confidence.
So it was kind of prayer.
Yes. But with the right mood. If we tried to do that, because, like I said, he's already pre-qualified for the job. He went through the interview process. If we tried to do such a thing, we wouldn't be able to get out of our own way. We need a spiritual master. He had a spiritual master. All it took was that voice saying tapa, and then okay, yeah. I'm not going to be able to figure this out on my own. And so he did it. Wouldn't it be great if that's all we needed? If that's how preaching was done? Just tapa. Oh, yeah. I gotta really stop, trying to be the center of everything and stop trying to attain perfection by my own endeavors, which is impossible. And let's just redirect our consciousness. Wouldn't that be great if it were that easy? But his faith was dridha, and ours is komala. So that means we have to go through the process. He didn't have to go through the process, he had it. Good? Continuing. He has one great energy, which is called Maya, in many places in the scriptures. Maya means the external manifestation of Krishna. By the definition, miyante ananya, that by which things are measured. Krishna cannot be understood except through the agency of Maya. The learned divide Krishna's energy, Maya, into superior spiritual energy, Chit Shakti, and inferior or material energy, Maya Shakti. Actually, the superior energy is the inconceivable energy. The inferior energy is its shadow. That inferior energy is the controller of the material universe. Footnote 45. It's Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, Text 33. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. Continuing. The Maya Shakti that is condemned in spiritual discussions is this inferior energy, not the spiritual energy. So this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. So, this statement, if it is without relation to me, but everything comes from Krishna, so of course it's related to him. So why does it say that?
If we don't see the connection.
Right. If we don't see the connection. Is there a term used for understanding the relationship between one object and another, or the connection?
Sambandha.
Sambandha. That's convenient. Yes. So if we don't actually understand the proper sambandha, then, even though there are countless philosophies, but although attempting to reach the truth, they are all incomplete, mutually conflicting, being generated from illusory premises. So if we don't actually understand the relation, then we're just dealing with the illusion, right? Yeah?
Because the reality is that everything is connected with Krishna.
Yes.
And if you're not conscious about that, means you're not seeing the reality, means you're in illusion.
Exactly. It's as simple as that. Jai. Are there any questions about today? Okay. So we stop here. Om Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.